Start in the Middle East because thousands have joined funeral processions in Jenin in the West Bank for 12 Palestinians killed during an intense 48-hour operation by the Israeli military. Massive crowds marched towards the cemetery. These pictures just giving you a sense of the scale of that turnout. Huge numbers, huge anger too, after Israeli forces launched 2 days of raids against what they described as terrorists launching attacks from Jenin. 8 of the dead were members of militant groups. Well, as the bodies were carried through the debris-strewn streets, the militants were seen firing into the air. The crowds could also be heard chanting as the procession weaved through the streets. Well, it comes after Israel said its air defence system had intercepted 5 rockets fired from Gaza into southern Israel in the early hours. In response, the Israeli Defence Force said their jets hit what they said was an underground Hamas weapons manufacturing facility. The IDF's 2-day military operation left 1 Israeli soldier dead, as well as the 12 Palestinians. Palestinian leaders have accused Israel of mounting an invasion of the refugee camp. Well, let's go live now to our correspondent Anna Foster. She's there in Jenin for us. And Anna, well, just let's start with the funerals themselves, because so many people turning out. Just give us a sense of what the day has been like.
That's right, Matthew. I was there as that funeral procession began this morning. People gathering outside the hospital as the bodies were brought there, held aloft on stretchers. There were flags waved, there was chanting, as you said. There was a lot of gunfire as that procession made its way to the mosque for prayers, which is a standard feature, actually, of funerals like this one. What was interesting is that several members, 2 members, we believe, of the Palestinian Authority leadership had arrived to take part in those funerals, but were asked to leave, which really gives you an idea of the way things are here in Jenin and some of the problems that they're facing. The fact that these militant groups, and in particular a youth movement, are unhappy with their leadership. They're unhappy with the Palestinian Authority. They don't feel that they represent their interests. They don't feel that they do enough to try and deal with the issues that they face living under the Israeli occupation that they describe here. So you could really see the anger that was present this morning as those funerals took place of those Palestinians, as you said, who were killed during this 48-hour large and intense, the largest of its kind in years, Israeli military operation here in Jenin.
Anna, in terms of the operation itself, the Israeli forces have been showing off some of the arms they say they actually found during the 48 hours. What is being said there about the effectiveness, though, of this 2-day military operation?
Oh, that's an interesting question, because it depends who you ask. The Israelis, as you say quite rightly, just a few kilometres from here, across the West Bank barrier on the Israeli side, they held this display of weaponry that they said that they captured from within the camp. They'd laid it all out. They invited the press to come and take pictures, and they have said that their aims in this operation have very much been achieved. They said they wanted to degrade and dismantle the infrastructure that these militant Palestinian groups were using. They talked about finding weapons caches, command and control rooms that they say that they've managed to dismantle. So in that respect, they were very happy with the operation. Equally, they said that they wanted to send a message, a strong message, that they would carry out operations like this in civilian areas if they felt that it was required. But on the other side, of course, the Jenin Brigades, which is this grouping of Palestinian militants from different Palestinian factions. They're not all from the same party, but they're sort of bound together by this common location here in Jenin. They say that they still have firepower left, they still have weaponry, and they still have fighters, and they have vowed to regroup. Some of them see this as a victory. They say because some of them are still standing, it is a victory for them, a victory for their group, and they have vowed to continue waging this armed struggle against the Israeli occupation, as they say. And we've seen these attacks on Israelis that have been carried out from here in Jenin, where they've been planned, executed from here. And that was why the Israelis said, despite regional condemnation and despite warnings from countries like the US, for example, about the fact that this took place in a very densely populated civilian area.
And I'll ask you more about that in a second, but I just want to put onto the screen just pictures, because we are expecting to hear from Benjamin Netanyahu in the next little while. You can see the podiums all set up there. This is an Air Force base, and Israel's Prime Minister apparently going to praise the security forces for those 2 days of operations in Jenin. So as soon as that starts, we'll obviously carry that for you with those latest comments. But Anna, you were talking about the end of the operation and the refugee camp. We've also really over the last few hours seen the first images of what is inside that camp, the damage done by the 48-hour operation. They have an immediate task, don't they, of restoring vital infrastructure, water, electricity.
They do, Matthew, that's right. I've just come actually from the refugee camp to speak to you here, and you're right, things like water and electricity, we're told that efforts are being made to try and restore those. But just as you walk through the streets there, obviously there are the remains of burning tyres, there's a lot of broken glass, there's a lot of shell casings that people are sweeping up, because of course we talk about the civilians that live there, but there are children who live there as well, so they're trying to clean up the streets. Interestingly as well, just as we left in the last hour or so, at the entrances to the camps, they've been putting sort of rudimentary roadblocks in there, some big stones, some rubble, some gas bottles, which wasn't there earlier today and isn't normally there, and I think is a suggestion really on two fronts. One is that the continuing concern that Israeli forces may return, but also in terms of Palestinian Authority forces. There were some clashes last night with their own Palestinian forces, who some people here don't feel that they stepped in. They felt that they cooperated, in fact, with the Israeli forces in allowing this operation to happen. So it shows you really that unrest that's happening on both sides. And when you hear from Benjamin Netanyahu, he will no doubt reflect on that from this carefully chosen location, an Air Force base where drone attacks have been launched. This operation started with a drone attack, which was unusual in many ways here in the occupied West Bank, and showed you the scale and the size really and the intent of this operation.
Anna Foster, we will leave it there, but thanks very much as we continue to watch those pictures. Benjamin Netanyahu due to speak in the next little while, so we'll come away from that, but we'll continue to monitor and obviously bring you the significant passages when he actually talks there to the assembled press. That's the latest there, the situation in Jenin.